Welcome, everybody, to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Friday, October 10th, 2025. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. Delighted that you're with us. And Gary, we had a brief conversation just before the show, and so I'm glad you're here. It doesn't surprise me after the piece of the puzzle you got yesterday that the whole new layer is coming up for you. And one of the thoughts I had before we get into what we shared a few minutes ago was based on yesterday's show. The idea came that you might want to look at, you acknowledge that you've noticed. David used to point out to you that when your stuff was up, you'd laugh, and that might deserve a worksheet or two around. Were you ever allowed to express anger? Or, show that there was any such thing as anger going on for you? Or did you always have to put on a happy face?
Yeah, I would say that in my escape, I definitely just chose the happy face.
I can remember as a kid being told, if you don't stop that crying, I'll give you something to cry for. I can remember thinking, I'm crying. I have something to cry for. What are you talking about?
So what just came up for me was that I made a promise, commitment to myself to never be like Dad. See, so that would mean when I would get angry or anger start to come up, if I let that out, that rage and stuff show like him, then that means I would be like him. That was a big piece. That was
your
a big
passive
piece
power person message.
Yes, and it went along with the drinking too. So I'll never drink. I'll never, treat anybody like that. I'll never be angry, and I'll never, and I did them all.
And here you've lived a whole lifetime with no anger. Still breathing with you. And, when I was thinking about that this morning, when that kind of came up in my meditation this morning, and that's why I sent you that link to living, not saying the Lord's Prayer, or pardon me, honor thy father and thy mother, Father's Day message. And thought that might be useful for the next layer that pops, but what's happening?
I turned it on, tried to listen to it, but the video would not play with my map, and my map is a requirement for me to get around when I've got these jobs spread out and here and the other. So for some reason I couldn't get the Vimeo to play. I'll just have to listen to
the same time as your map program's open. Okay.
Right. Yeah. It works with the YouTube. So I've had that little functions where they wouldn't work congruently. So I couldn't get that one to play with my map.
Okay.
Yeah, but I've got. So
yesterday your closing process. Cool. So yesterday your closing process was really feeling through and looking at the impossibility of imagining Dad as love with all the rage that had been expressed, and maybe you can just share from there where that ended up for you yesterday and what's going on today.
Well, it ended up being very.
Are you out in the boonies? You're kind of cutting out a little bit.
Oh yeah, I'm way up in the boonies. I'm trying to get back to civilization here, and I apologize for that. And,
okay.
So, I got a release of suppressed energy and felt joy and really excitement about tapping into that and having the insights around all that work and ready to jump in and do the worksheets and that we came up with, and also the mind shifter. So I've got it all queued up, and that's as far as I got with it. So by the time I got home, got up this morning and rolled. I've been going constantly.
And you ran into a trigger for?
So the trigger was around my worker, and that was one of the things we ended on. The workers, and we were talking about how Grandpa he couldn't stay around
Right.
one job more than a year. He would blow up and lose his composure and get angry and quit or get fired. And so I had a fellow a new guy, tried him out for a day or two, and I could like see some things were going to be a little challenging with him. And like, okay, this is happening again. At least now I know why. It's like, let's work on that. So, but that was the trigger. As he worked 2 days, and then he had all these emergency came up, and he had to go take care of Mom, and then the next day he had this car thing broke down, and the other thing, and then he showed up, said begging me to work. I wasn't going to work him anymore at all, and I thought, well, maybe that's rash. A couple of days, let's see. And I said, well, I need to work. I said, I can continue to use you if I'm around to manage you. And again, he was begging to work. He really needed the money to do this and that. And I said, okay, I'm gonna give you some simple assignments that you should be able to complete on your own. And which he didn't. He didn't do them the way I wanted him to do them. Okay, and that brought up a lot of frustration, some anger, resentment. You still hear me?
As you started to look at that anger and resentment, where'd your mind go with that?
Well, I start breathing. I would just breathe, let it go, and soften the breath, and so I didn't fully process it. I just was able to keep functioning without going blotto. That's as far as I got with it.
Uh-huh. So it might be time for a conversation with Grandpa.
Conversation with Grandpa. Yeah, that's good, because when I had the phone call with Dad, that was where the joy opened up. I saw for a brief moment, for the first time in forever, possibility of experiencing joy around the presence of him. You know, there was an opening there. So with Grandpa, the conversation with Grandpa is certainly something I'm open to. And Grandpa and Grandma were my escape people too. I would spend all the time I could at their house, live with them quite a bit. So it was a little closer to a normal setting.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I just well, actually, I'll go ahead and put the link into the notes here for the presentation that I sent you. So there's a link to a Father's Day service where I talk about this commandment that says, honor thy father and thy mother. And for me, Terry, yesterday, you went from that space of never even imagining decency from your father to looking at a goal that you'd never considered canceling and just entertaining that. I mean, the shift in your energy, the shift in your aliveness was monumental. And of course, Dad didn't change. Dad didn't do anything. It was a totally inside job. And the brilliance of that commandment, and it's not a suggestion, of honor thy father and thy mother. It's interesting that when they said to Yeshua, what's most important? What's the most important thing to do? And he says, have Rahman when you think of the Creator, when you think of neighbor, and by so doing, you maintain self. And Rahman being this gateway in the frontal lobes of the brain, that is the entryway when it's linked up for human life, love to enter our form. And that keeps the intentional part of the mind on track with just what Jeannie's got. To keep the mind on track with love. And for me, what I saw you do yesterday when you were able to entertain that was just it just looked like a huge energetic opening of being able to take Rachma to the next level. And, there's that law. What's most important in the law? He says, Rachma. And that applies to everybody in the world. The Creator and neighbor in Aramaic means anybody to think about. But then there's a new level, or there's another group of people that there's a different requirement for. And that is to honor. And many people who've had a lot of issues go down with mother or father, with their power persons in particular. And this really applies to any abuser. We could change that one to honor thy abuser. And most people say, well, you're nuts. You're crazy. Well, not if you understand what honor means.
Uh-huh.
And honor, what I saw you doing yesterday was opening a space to bring love into action, not just to have Rahma, but to bring it into action toward your father. That's honoring. And the reason why that's a commandment is because, usually father and mother are power persons. And if there are unresolved issues with power persons, then up comes my unresolved issue. And if I can originate from being love into activity toward them in their presence, everything I haven't resolved with them is resonating. All the drama and trauma, pain, whatever is resonating. And if I can tap into and come from a space of love and bring that into action toward them, it goes through a conscious, active, present love goes through my field, and I get to heal. It really doesn't have anything to do with mother and father. And so to me yesterday, that was just a really powerful demonstration of that, because most people do the exact opposite. And ultimately this whole body of work, we've said before, here we are walking each other home. Well, extending that to the next level is walking our ancestors home. Because in order to heal, it takes the presence of love. And when disease is activated, what most people do is seek to bring to bear whatever their power person dynamic was. If it was hostility, rage, righteousness, whatever the power person did that I hated the most is what I think is going to resolve my problem. And yet, all I've done is create a separation, and the very thing that initiated the disease in the first place is what I'm trying to use to resolve it. And that's what most of the world is doing. Whatever their power person did to them, the stress is up in the presence of that power person or anybody. And they're using the drama and trauma. And to recognize whenever I speak from fear or hostility, I'm divorced from my own state of being. And when I divorce myself from my own state of being, I'm throwing myself to the wolves, because I've forsaken love. I've forsaken the presence of my human life. Now, that doesn't mean that, let's say in the case of an employee, I can't say, no, sorry, we're finished. That's okay. But if I say it from the unresolved power person energy, then I'm right back in my disease process. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And in order for us to truly live, we've got to face and slay the dragon within us. And it doesn't matter where we see the dragon, where we place it. I put it on, this person's face, that person's face. The dragon that is the power person dynamic in myself that I have not yet resolved will show up in 1,000 disguises. And the way that I put that dragon on somebody else's back is to enter into that game of denial, thinking, speaking that out there is the cause of what's moving in me, rather than, oh, that out there has triggered something for me to heal. So the question that we need to be asking ourselves is, what is it that I've hidden in the recesses of my own flesh that I call my mind? And returning back to honoring is, it's about that homecoming. It's about going back to the place where love dwells within you, where your being comes forward. And to do that, you're really, this is the work of putting your hand to the plow of eternal life. It's not an easy work to do. And it, ultimately requires, the assignment is the refusal to tolerate the presence of any sensation that approximates fear or hostility within me.
That's what I was experiencing today, earlier, as each one of the situations came up with the courthouse, with the worker. That's when that hostility and anger would come up. I was like, I'm not going to tolerate this. This is not the way I want to live.
Good
this is
for
not,
you. That's
yeah,
awesome, Terry.
This is not how it can be. It can be beautiful and loving and feel good. This is not necessary, but at the same time, I had a little frustration around that. It's like, oh shit, here's this stuff again. It's like, that kind of thing. But it didn't last
So you're
long enough
next.
to, yeah.
That's perfect. That, I mean, you just said, you just demonstrated for us how much progress you've made from what would have been blind rage to, okay, I've got some frustration now. I mean, that's monumental. And it shifts when you go back and you think of the impetus behind that energy as it was taken on how many times from the power person.
Yeah, felt pretty big to shift. That's definitely felt big.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's pretty awesome. And, another piece of the puzzle that I think ties in here in terms of that whole project that we've got going on with the codependence to interdependence work to become the thinker apart from the thought, the feeler apart from the feelings, the actor apart from the actions, is to recognize that if my mind wants to lay shame or condemnation or punishment on another for their sin, whatever the sin is, I mean, the most disgusting person in the world, if I want to lay that on them, the only way I can lay it on them is because that's in me. And my sin is the greater for having given up and not put the effort into bring forward the very thing we're designed for. And that is to connect with my own soul, my own being, and to relentlessly bring it forward, relentlessly, especially if you're the early adopter, the first one in the family system that's ever even conceived of such a thing. How many times you're going to have to do that? So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I join you saturating your physiology with the conscious active presence of love as that energy in your physiology is dissolved as it comes up for confrontation. And I mean, to be able to go from that kind of intense power person dynamic to, yeah, I got some frustration going on. That's fabulous. And to, remembering the idea of Satan. Most people in our culture today live their lives trapped in Satan. And it's not the dude with the red suit, the tail, and the pitchfork in Aramaic. It's the resistor, one who misleads. And so most, when things aren't going the way they want them to go, are misled by the resistor, having dissociated from their own toxic energy, their own quote unquote sin. They still live in the power person dynamic, being saturated in blame. And to change that dynamic, to shift that dynamic, where what you choose to do, especially when things aren't the way you want them to be, especially when that person's out there that, maybe really truly is doing crazy, insane things. In the presence of that, can I free my own internal structure from every form of hostility or fear, so that in that external event, my physiology is saturated with life being love flowing through a cell. And then, how so powerfully you just shared that he refused to give it up. So I'm certainly breathing with you. And, it's just such a powerful story, such a powerful demonstration, Terry, of how forgiveness really dissolves the bitterness of life and leaves us, even after, a scene as intense as the one you described yesterday, that the taste left in your mouth is that of sweetness. Not finished with the work yet, but that's just monumental. And I'll look forward to, you've probably watched that video before at some time in the past on honoring father and mother. But once you've watched it again, it'd be interesting to hear what you bring back to that.
Yes, I'm excited.
I'm excited
Very
too, and
interesting.
appreciate the fact that you're there as the shining example. It's pretty profound, pretty powerful.
There was a couple of thoughts running through my mind. Also, one was, when that hostility was coming up, it's like, I need to look at my diagram, and the diagram of the human mind, and I love that diagram. It's my favorite diagram. Oh, and then Rachma, I'm looking at Rachma, and looking for that experience that I had with Rachma way back in Heartland in relation to Cuba. It's like, I don't have that same connection. The Rachma understanding experience is getting stronger. Maybe it's time to bring this Cuba in also, and to deepen my understanding of those functioning together, and how that the intentions and the perceptions can really be. Now that's exciting to think about those two being in balance with this rock energy and this Cuba energy, which I don't understand, but I got an idea of what the potential is because of what I've been experiencing through the progress of the other pieces of work.
Awesome. Yeah, when you recognize, well, two thoughts are coming to my mind at the same time. One, just how profound it is that 2,000 years ago, Yeshua understood this about the mind, and it was the core of his teaching. Unfortunately, lost in not being translated by the Greeks, but being interpreted. The Greeks didn't have any idea of the brain cells he was functioning from, so couldn't even start to represent them, which in the last analysis means there is no such thing as a translation of the Aramaic words of Yeshua in Latin or Greek, and we're starting hopefully to approximate it in English. But to just have the understanding of the way the mind works is monumental. And I'm actually, as I'm talking, I'm looking to copy the link to that filters diagram so that we can put it in the notes for anyone who perhaps doesn't have it. So what else be moving for you, sir?
Well, I have an understanding, a deeper and richer understanding of how that could have occurred for Yeshua to bring forth this profound, huge, monumental insight and understanding to a world full of violence, blame, and terror. Because as we do our work, all that stuff gets activated, and our genetics and the lineage and all that stuff comes forward. So I've experienced what a person has to face. And if you don't have, like you said, the tools, not only that, but the assistance, I'm back to that one, another human helping another human. It's just that has the tools. It's just monumental, for lack of a better word. It's without parallel. It's like that.
Agreed.
Really.
You cut out there the last sentence or so, but
yeah. And then he had those
go ahead,
12
you're back.
dudes hanging out with him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He had the 12 dudes hanging out with him, the apostles. And yet, even with that group, with him being right there with them, we see how that unfolded, or we kind of get an idea from the documentary, But go ahead.
You look at them, he takes them to the Garden of Gethsemane, like, guys, I really need your support here. I've been training you for a long time. Now it's your turn to be my support. And an hour later he comes out, he's like, can't you stay awake for an hour? Can't you even hold to the space of active present love for a lousy hour? And they couldn't. They had not processed that in themselves, and there was no possibility of it.
Thinking about that conversation with Grandpa, one of the things that happened when I went to live with Grandpa after right around high school age, I was going into, there was all kinds of stuff going on. So I'm not getting into that whole story, but basically, Grandpa was a lifelong alcoholic, and he drank every day and worked every day, so he considered himself functional. And he pretended to hide it from everyone, pretended like he was hiding it, and everyone pretended like he was hiding it, but everyone knew that he wasn't hiding it. It's like it was so obvious. And he would have little bottles of hidden around the bakery because Grandma wouldn't tolerate it. She was a Southern Baptist, so she didn't want to see it. She knew it was happening. It was happening. It was just the incredible amount of dysfunctionality was just off the charts with the whole family unit. But that was my safe haven, was in that group there, because they did at least function as human beings to some degree, that they provided a roof and a shelter, and they had steady jobs, that constituted a much better life than what I had experienced as a child. So, but he indoctrinated me into his game of using alcohol. At 17, I was drinking liquor with him. That was how he functioned and worked. And I thought, okay, well, this is good. And little did they know that they were lighting a fire in me, or helping to light the fire that just blew up. And then when it blew up, everybody was aghast or amazed at how bad my alcohol. There was no control of my alcoholism. None. You know, that was all gone after the generations of it. And I think the conversation would be around, Grandpa, that was probably not the best way to handle me at that time. You know, was to encourage me to be your drinking buddy.
Right.
And I think now just saying that, see, he was isolated too, though. See, he didn't really have anybody, any friends. He just was all alone in his own world there.
Mm. That's pretty deep need for a friend.
Yeah. And that's the way he was raised.
Yeah, I understand.
Part of the business at the farm was moonshine and tobacco. That was the crops.
Really?
That's why they sent him to work in a bakery at the age of 16 during Prohibition, so he could get the connection to get the 100-pound bags of sugar. Because in Prohibition, you had to have coupons. It was regulated. They followed the sugar because that was how they made the moonshine. So they sent him in as a boy, working the bakery, so he could get the 100-pound sacks of sugar and bring it back to work the moonshine stills. And once he got out of there, he didn't want to come back after a while. He was like, you guys can have the farm. I'm staying out here.
Right.
And that's when he became the black sheep of the family. Or part of it, anyway.
Well, I look forward to hearing how your conversation goes with him and what kind of insights are uncovered by it.
Well, I've got a lot of work to do.
Welcome to the club.
A lot of work.
You are anything but alone.
That's for sure. Thank you. I feel that more now than I ever have.
Nice. Awesome. Well, any other thoughts for you?
I'm pretty good right now.
All right. Well, holding a space and looking forward to the ongoing process.
Yes.
All right. Well, anybody else out there with a thought for us? Susan, nice to have you back, young lady. Hope everything's well in your world. That's Susan F. that I'm speaking to. Oh, we lost her. Okay. Well, when I had my screen open last time, Susan was there, but all right. Well, anybody else have a thought for us? Anything to share? Questions, thoughts, answers, ideas? So if no one has any thoughts for us, and I've switched screens, Jeanie. If you're listening, if anybody puts hand up, if you'd let me know.
I'll do it.
Because I can't see the screen with hands, but one of the speaking with Terry about the way the mind works and that diagram, and I put a link in. I think in order to use that link, you have to open or you have to download a one reader. It's an easy download of something I've had on my phone for years. It's never been a problem. And then through that link, you'll be able to open the schematic for the human mind. But the power that mind energy moving in the mind has to produce pictures, the AI component, we've had a good demonstration of, there was no such thing as AI, and now we know that, probably a third of the stuff on the internet is now AI. It's totally and completely fabricated, and all you have to do is speak a set of instructions into an AI device, and wow, there's a video of it, complete with all the players, and it looks genuine and it looks real. And when you realize that's what we're dealing with our human minds, and as long as we hold the slightest thought that the disturbance going on in our physiology, i.e., that which I'm feeling, is caused by something outside of us, then we create, that's like an instruction given to AI, and our own carbon-based memory, which is AI, literally hallucinates, produces a whole world where it's so convincing. It's like perception is the great deceiver. And to recognize that, when you experience something with emotion attached to it, that emotion is a reflection of an energy moving within your own physiology. You can only see and feel what you hold within you. Now, if you're uplinked, if you're connected to the uplink, then you'll, at the same time as any of those hostility and fear-based things move, if you're listening, if you're paying attention, then your mind will give you a totally different picture. That is your mind of Christ. That is the higher mind in you, the mind that comes from being, the mind that brings in the intuition. So the leaving behind perception and allowing the space for intuition, your inner tutor, intuit, the inner tutor, the inner teacher, to bring something other than what 1,000 generations convince us is true, whenever those 1,000 generations haven't been reviewed and the pained content forgiven. And so if you don't like what you're seeing and feeling, whatever's going on in your external world, if you pretend that you're seeing and feeling what you're seeing and feeling because of what they did, then you dissociate from the very content that is the cause of what you're feeling and what you're seeing. So if you don't like what you're seeing and feeling, get to work and remove it from your mind, which is your physiology, from your body. And remember that your most natural state, just hold a newborn and tap into the energy of that newborn. That's what we're designed to inhabit. That underlying energy, no matter what's going on in the world. Can I free myself of all hostility or fear so that I could look at the most terrible event in the world and still taste the sweetness of my own being? That's the state of empowerment through which the world is changed. Most people say, oh, well, that person's just unfeeling. No, there's a strong, powerful presence of love there. And in that space, that's where one is empowered. That's where one's full power is available to them, rather than being turned over to their unconscious dynamics and dissipated through their own unconscious dynamics. And it's that state in which we are empowered to bring real change to the world. Now, someone who doesn't understand that will want comfort from these words, but there's probably not going to be much comfort, because one who has not yet awakened comfort within themselves can't experience it. And falling for the habituated responses of our forefathers is formidable. And so the whole objective of our work together is to really, truly free ourselves of words of violence, of disapproval, even for the criminal, even for the person who today is doing the most terrible thing in the world. Can you free yourself from any inclination to do them harm? That doesn't mean that you need to free yourself from the inclination to have them held accountable or to hold them accountable if that's part of your job. Now, a lot of people, when they think about a common, yeah, they need to be punished. Excuse me. The only reason anyone would think that somebody else needs to be punished is because the power person dynamic that they hated the most in them was that of being punished by their power person. And so that becomes a default setting when under stress in the mind. Nobody has ever deserved to be punished for anything. The reason people are doing crazy is because of punishment. And, you know, even in the, what someone would term good families, it's not unusual for little violences to slip by every day, like just the look of disapproval, the held breath of you're wrong, you're doing something wrong, has to be given up. So working through all of those little violences becomes a part of the work that needs to be done. And what we're looking to do is to bring the deepest levels of understanding possible to this process and practice of healing, of internal healing that Yeshua taught 2,000 years ago. To apply this technology of forgiveness is monumental. And to recognize the shared, immediate, intimate experience of just recognizing that your breath is literally shared with the Creator and that it is the most powerful healing tool that there is in existence. When he spoke to them of breath and they turned it, the whole idea from the, the literal breath of God that is in our nostrils into some kind of a disembodied external spirit that was holy, rather than what he was talking about was living in the whole breath, that the imminent experience of that is such a personal, powerful healing force. And of course, when you do live in that, that means that you can't hold anything down that doesn't belong. So if it's in there, as Terry just shared with us, it's going to be up in our faces. So in that original creation story, it doesn't say the Creator sent out His Spirit. It said the Creator sent out His breath. And of course, there's the title of Jeanie's book, Healing Generations, One Breath at a Time. That deep inner path that without the tools is, and I understand it, is impossible to face. Without the brain cells, without the understanding, it's just impossible to go there. And so reclaiming that wisdom that was lost, that when translated, or pardon me, when interpreted through the Greek, the Latin, that deeper understanding was just lost and it became some sort of an intellectual process rather than the gritty, grace-filled process of true healing. And it's a challenge of work to do. And it can be done. And it's so delightful to have a community here sharing this space. Thank you for your comment, Sally. Me too. Me too. It's just, actually, it would be really easy for me right now to just stop talking and just go into the still point session. That's what my physiology is feeling like at this moment. I'm actually having to effort to pull my mind out and to just recognize the power and the sacredness of allowing ourselves to live in that breath. To be conscious that, in the scriptures they talked about, in Him we live, move, and have our being, and it's in the breath, the eternal forces from God, that is our true and our only home. You have any thoughts on that to share, Sally?
Can you hear me?
You're loud and clear.
Well, when you said you had the impulse to go into a still point, I've been having that impulse all week. And I've been volunteering at a film festival. And so there's times of a lot of activity. And then there's times of stillness where I'm kind of hanging with the back of the scenes roadies and the filmmakers and all that.
Right.
And I'll notice that I'm going into stillness that's like this real sweet spot. And I have almost like a smile on my face. I've had some people inquire, like, well, what are you thinking about?
What are you
And
smoking?
and it brings me back, like it kind of startles me for a second. And then I smile and say, oh, I'm just enjoying the peaceful moment. And so, but that's new for me. I haven't
That's awesome.
I haven't always had that experience. So when you said that, I was resonating even more. And just really grateful to be able to listen every day and not have a job. I can listen. I can learn from the art of the way you manage questions, and Jeanie's always there to commune with on text or chat. And it's just been a lovely experience. I've given myself the gift of listening in with you for 5 months now, almost every day. And it's astounding all the changes that are happening in my world. So thank you.
Sweet. Well, it sounds like you're moving in the direction of making your link up.
Yes.
To that higher mind permanent.
That would be very, very, very much in my agreement. I would love that because it's been a long time that I've been seeking and maybe not quite finding. So that will be a beautiful intention to set for our intensive time together.
Oh, well, I'll certainly hold space for that for sure.
I will too.
All right. Any other
Thank you.
thoughts?
No, just a massive big thank you to you and Jeanie.
Delighted. Delight to have you on the team and delight to be on yours.
Thank you.
All right. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Blessings. Bye-bye.
So anyone else have a thought for us? We're down to about 2 minutes. If you're out there in listener land, just push that mute button and go ahead and share what you have to say. Go for it.
Yes, Belinda.
Yay, young lady. Welcome.
Yes, I just wanted to finish up with my gratitude for this hour, and you're talking about the genetics and healing and all of the good things that you and Terry and Sally have been talking about. And I just want to thank you very much for your kind, gentle words of support that you gave me when I shared with you about giving up the need to be perfect, to perfectly heal my eyes by myself. That was such a gift. And to be able to realize that I can give up that perfectionism, however it shows up. And in this situation, it was, oh my God, I must heal this all by myself, because if I don't, I'm not worthy. I've done it wrong again. You know, all of those funny little thoughts that are bless her heart and his heart, our little
power person
egos get
messages.
into. Yeah, that our egos, it's like I was sharing with what I was thinking, how we in all our egos are our little personas that we have made up, soul has made up, and it comes down in order to try to navigate this world, plus the programs that we've been given with, downloaded as well, to try to survive in this world. And maybe our work is, if that ego is our little child within, this is just a thought now, then our work is to nurture that little child, not to diss the ego and say it's good or it's bad in either direction, to give up that whole judgment around what an ego is, what we're here about, and just let each of us play and learn in our own unique way, with our own unique little walk along the way together. And it's just really helpful. It's I may not be able, I as one little soul, I'm not going to cure all of the ancestral woes of my upline. That's
maybe you will.
some of that work goes down to the next generation, don't you think?
Absolutely. And you might just finish it up.
You never know what it is or what up is. But I just wanted to share with you how supportive and gentle your allowance and acceptance of my little experience. And I really appreciate that.
Well, breathing with you. And
thank you. The breath. I keep forgetting about the breath. Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right.
Because I hold it in excitement as well. Thank you.
Well, and that it might be worth doing a worksheet or two around holding it in excitement, because that excitement may be a cover for something else. If the breath is stopping, might be worth just investigating at least.
Oh, thank you for that. Because I wondered about that, about all excitement around positive things, and how could I weave that into a worksheet in a successful way, in an illuminating way. Thank you.
Yeah, we talk about doing worksheets, and most people do worksheets around the negative events, so-called negative events in their lives. But there comes a point where you start doing worksheets around positive events. If I think that the reason I'm feeling great right now is because of what's going on out there, I need to do a worksheet. I need to disconnect my projection that that's the cause of this so that I can come back to and stop lying to myself and recognize this is my natural state. This is like, there's no reason it's all required to be totally and completely immersed in the sweetness and the presence of love physiologically in every cell 24/7, 365.
It's
And
so
so
amazing
doing
how we
forgiveness,
just are. Go ahead.
go ahead.
It's just amazing how we are so programmed to look out there, Michael.
From
For
the start.
everything.
I mean, yeah, think about what happens with the child. What do we do? Oh,
Right.
look at all the shiny baubles out here. Look at things. And time to go to the next level.
Maybe it's time to claim it. Claim it.
Yes,
Claim our territory. And put it right in
exactly.
the heart where it belongs.
Yay.
Yay. Blessings to you both.
All right, lots of love. Thank you for saying thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.